Some connections seem to transcend logic, time, and even rational understanding. It's as if an invisible force guides two paths that, inevitably, will cross. When that happens, it's no accident. There are signs, subtle, repetitive, profound, that echo both internally and externally, revealing that this meeting carries a deeper meaning. Jung called this synchronicity, events that appear coincidental but have profound significance when aligned with the soul. Have you ever felt that someone entered your life as a silent answer to something you didn't even know you were seeking? When love is destined, the universe finds ways to speak through dreams, symbols, and emotional mirrors. And when we listen attentively, we realize it's not just about loving someone, but about awakening forgotten parts of ourselves. Comment below. I recognize the signs the universe sends me. Carl Jung believed that true love goes beyond superficial attraction or social conventions. He saw it as a deep process of individuation, a calling of the soul to integrate unknown aspects of itself through the other. When we feel that we were meant to love someone, it's not just emotion or chance. It's the unconscious working through symbols, archetypes, and projections. When we meet someone who affects us profoundly, it's common to project onto them parts of our psyche we haven't yet recognized. We might see in them everything we idealize, or, paradoxically, everything we fear. This phenomenon is projection, an unconscious mechanism by which we place within the other internal elements that haven't yet been integrated. When the universe sends someone to us, from the Jungian perspective, it's providing the mirror we need to recognize these hidden parts. The shadow, all that we reject in ourselves, also tends to emerge in these significant encounters. And true love requires the courage to face that mirror, embracing not only enchantment, but also discomfort. The other person reveals to us both what is luminous and what needs healing. The union of opposites, anima and animus, feminine and masculine, is also essential in this process. A destined relationship, therefore, doesn't aim only for romantic happiness, but for the wholeness of the individual. The universe acts as a symbolic mediator, using meaningful coincidences to bring together two souls that reflect and challenge each other to grow. In this context, loving is an initiatory path. Destiny, then, lies not only in finding someone, but in becoming whole through that meeting. At certain moments in life, there are encounters that seem to defy any logical explanation. Two people cross paths under unlikely circumstances, in unexpected places, as if the universe conspired to unite those souls. In Carl Jung's analytical psychology, this type of experience is called synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence that, although lacking causal connection, carries deep significance for those who experience it. Applied to romantic relationships, this idea acquires an almost mystical dimension, suggesting that true love can indeed be a kind of response from the cosmos to our deepest unconscious. Synchronicity is different from mere coincidence. It's not just a statistical accident, but a convergence between the inner world and the outer world. Imagine, for example, someone who, after having a vivid dream about reunion, encounters an old flame on the subway the next day. Or someone who decides to move cities on intuition and meets there the person who will change their life. The force behind these encounters isn't governed by reason, but by the mysterious paths of the unconscious and the self, the regulating center of the psychic totality, according to Jung. In the realm of love, synchronicity acts as a messenger of the soul. The universe, through symbolic events, offers signs that help us perceive that this meeting has something to reveal, not only about the other person, but, above all, about ourselves. When we feel that we were meant to know someone, it's not merely an emotional impulse, but a call to pay attention to what this bond awakens in our inner world. The sense of instant familiarity, the inexplicable magnetism, the perfect timing, all of these are synchronic manifestations that cannot be ignored. This sense of purpose in encounters should not be mistaken for fantasy or romantic illusion. On the contrary, it demands presence and awareness. Jung said the unconscious communicates through symbols, and deep relationships are perhaps the greatest symbols of the journey toward self-knowledge. The person who appears in our life synchronously represents something ready to emerge in our psyche. It may be a repressed aspect, an unmet need, or even a new direction the self is trying to point us toward. Thus, meeting the other becomes a mirror reflecting parts of ourselves that have been asleep. What's important is to recognize that when life seems to conspire in favor of a romantic encounter, it's not only for emotional gratification, it's an invitation to transformation. Synchronicity is like a crack between worlds, a moment when the veil between the visible and the invisible is pierced to reveal a greater truth. When someone enters our life with that symbolic intensity, there is always a hidden meaning that goes beyond the surface. That meaning, however, only reveals itself to those willing to look inward, to listen to the silence of the unconscious, to ask themselves, what is this meeting asking me to see? Many stories of profound love begin with phrases like, "It felt as if I already knew them from another life," or "We weren't supposed to be in the same place, but something drew us together." These expressions reveal an essential Jungian truth. The soul recognizes what the mind does not yet understand. And when the universe moves to facilitate that recognition, we are not merely witnessing a romance, we are witnessing a turning point in the soul's journey. Therefore, upon noticing signs from the universe pointing to someone, it's crucial not just to follow the impulse, but also to reflect on what this meeting represents. The purpose lies not only in the other person, but in how this bond places us face to face with ourselves. Synchronicity and love are not merely meetings between people, they are meetings between inner worlds that were ready to awaken in one another. And when that happens, there's no doubt, chance had a purpose. When we fall in love, we often feel that the other fills a void we didn't know existed. There is idealization, an emotional intensity that makes us believe we have finally found the missing piece of our puzzle. Carl Jung explained this phenomenon as projection, an unconscious mechanism by which we attribute to the other aspects of ourselves we haven't yet recognized. In love, this dynamic is especially powerful, as it involves not only deep emotions, but also the activation of symbolic and archetypal contents of the psyche. Projections are inevitable. On some level, we all project. At the beginning of a relationship, it's common to see in the other an idealized image, the soulmate, the perfect match. That image, however, does not belong to the other, but to a part of our own psyche that has been activated. Jung called these images archetypes, universal patterns that inhabit the collective unconscious. Among them, the anima and animus stand out, unconscious representations of the feminine in the male psyche and the masculine in the female psyche, respectively. These figures shape how we perceive the opposite sex and deeply influence our choices in love. When we encounter someone who corresponds to these archetypes, a strong attraction is awakened. But what truly attracts us is the reflection of something within ourselves, not necessarily something in the other. We see beauty, strength, sensitivity, mystery, qualities that may be dormant or repressed inside us, but that manifest symbolically through the figure of the other. The relationship then becomes a kind of stage on which we enact our deepest longings. The problem is that, by projecting, we stop seeing the other as they really are. We only see what we desire or fear. Over time, projection tends to dissolve, and this is often when relationships face crises. The idealized person begins to reveal their limitations, flaws, and contradictions, and that can cause frustration, anger, or disillusionment. But according to Jung, this is an essential moment in the individuation process. The withdrawal of projection is painful, but necessary for building a more authentic relationship, one based not on illusions, but on reality. To love someone without projection is to see the other in their entirety, with light and shadow, and still choose to stay. This process, however, demands emotional maturity and a willingness to self-know. When we feel magnetically drawn to someone, we should ask ourselves, what exactly am I seeing in this person? Often, what fascinates us in the other is something we repress in ourselves. A rational man may be captivated by a spontaneous woman because she represents the emotional freedom he doesn't allow himself. A controlling woman may fall for a free-spirited, chaotic man because he embodies the fluidity she fears living. In both cases, the other functions as a mirror of unlived possibilities. These projections are not deceptions, but opportunities. They reveal psychic contents crying out for recognition and integration. When we become aware of this, the relationship transforms into fertile ground for growth. True love then ceases to be mere passionate fusion and becomes a path of mutual revelation. Every encounter, every crisis, every enchantment, and every disappointment become steps toward building a more whole self. Jung also warned that by not recognizing our projections, we risk imprisoning the other in our fantasies. We demand they behave according to our ideal, and any deviation becomes a source of conflict. Intense romances can turn into emotional prisons precisely because the projected image doesn't match reality. Breaking that cycle is challenging but also liberating. Allowing the other to be who they are, not who we wish them to be, is one of the purest forms of love. When we realize that what attracts us in the other is also within us, we begin a process of reconnection with neglected parts of the soul. Love, then, is not just desire but a mirror, and what we see reflected there can be the key to our own transformation. No matter how enchanting they seem at first, romantic relationships inevitably trigger conflicts. And for Carl Jung, these conflicts are not failures of love but profound revelations of what lies hidden within us. Jung called this hidden content the shadow, all that we deny, repress, or cannot accept within ourselves. The shadow isn't necessarily morally evil. It primarily represents whatever remains outside the light of consciousness. And in love, it emerges intensely because the other, through intimate emotional closeness, becomes the perfect trigger to awaken what has been asleep or denied. When starting a relationship, we encounter enchantment, but also our fears, insecurities, jealousy, old wounds, and unresolved traumas. All of this composes the shadow. The romantic partner becomes an emotional mirror that unknowingly puts us face to face with our vulnerabilities. That's why often the person we love most also hurts us the most, not because of ill intent, but because their presence illuminates exactly what is out of balance within us. Jung said, "What we do not face in ourselves, we eventually meet as fate." In love, this manifests when we attract partners who repeat family patterns, reenact childhood wounds, or provoke intense feelings we cannot explain rationally. These patterns are not mere coincidences. They are invitations from the unconscious for us to look at our shadow. Life, and especially relationships, become symbolic arenas where we are called to grow, not just to be happy. Many relationships end because the individuals cannot bear the mirror the other offers. Instead of realizing that the conflict expresses their own shadow, they project it onto the other, accusing them of being the source of the problem. "You're selfish. You make me feel insecure. You never appreciate me." From a Jungian perspective, these statements can conceal inner truths that have yet to be acknowledged. The ego, feeling discomfort, shifts responsibility onto the other, blocking true integration and perpetuating suffering. However, if the relationship is lived consciously, it becomes a powerful path to healing. When two people have the courage to look at their own shadows, instead of constantly pointing out the other's faults, the love deepens. Conflict ceases to be a threat and becomes an opportunity. Every disagreement becomes a mirror, every crisis a portal to a new level of mutual understanding. Pain is no longer a reason to flee, but a sign that something needs integration. We must remember that the shadow also contains potentials. Many repressed qualities, such as courage, spontaneity, sensuality, creativity, were pushed into the unconscious by moral judgments or emotional wounds. When we enter a challenging relationship, these qualities can emerge disguised as tension. A partner who challenges us may unconsciously awaken our need to express our own voice. A relationship that confronts us with abandonment might activate the wound around self-worth. The question is, are we willing to listen to what these feelings truly want to tell us? Facing the shadow requires humility, because it forces us to recognize that the problem may not lie solely in the other. It also demands a commitment to self-knowledge, since we're not always ready to see what's hidden. But when we accept this call, love transforms. It stops being a romantic ideal and becomes a spiritual practice. The romantic partner then ceases to be seen as an enemy in moments of conflict and is recognized as an ally in the healing process. According to Jung, the true romantic encounter occurs when two souls agree to collaborate in each other's individuation. This includes confronting the shadow, embracing discomfort, and traversing the dark nights of the soul together. It's not about tolerating abuse or staying in destructive relationships, but about recognizing that wounds, when acknowledged with awareness, can become raw material for personal transformation and for deepening the bond. Destined love, then, isn't one without conflicts, but one that allows each conflict to take us deeper into ourselves. Instead of fleeing, blaming, or repeating patterns, we begin asking, what is this discomfort trying to show me? At that point, the relationship ceases to be a field of projection and becomes a path to wholeness. In Carl Jung's analytical psychology, the individuation process is the central goal of psychic life, becoming who we truly are by uniting our inner opposites, recognizing social masks, and bringing into consciousness everything that lies in the unconscious. This path, however, is not traveled alone. Relationships, especially romantic ones, are precious instruments on this journey, because it's through contact with the other that we're challenged to grow, to confront our illusions, and to integrate our fragmented parts. When two souls meet authentically, they don't just accompany each other, they provoke each other to evolve, and it's in that transformative tension that destined love resides. Loving someone who mirrors our soul doesn't mean finding a perfect or absolutely compatible being. It means finding someone whose presence awakens deep layers of our being, often unknown or neglected. This person doesn't come to complete us but to mirror us, and that mirror reveals both beauty and wounds, both potential and resistance. The relationship becomes fertile ground for individuation, when there's room for authenticity, vulnerability, and conscious confrontation with each person's inner truth. In this sense, destined love is one that respects individuality, but also stimulates mutual expansion. It's not about fusion, but communion, two whole individuals who, upon meeting, recognize in each other a calling to something greater. This type of relationship requires openness to self-knowledge and to the unknown, because it constantly pushes us out of our comfort zones. The other is more than a companion, they are a catalyst. And this catalytic presence is often the universe's clearest way of guiding us to encounter the self. Often true love isn't the one that brings immediate tranquility, but the one that forces us to revisit everything we thought we knew about ourselves. The person who appears in our life with this role typically carries powerful symbolic elements. They activate vivid dreams, provoke transformations, generate restlessness that didn't exist before. These signs indicate we are dealing with someone deeply connected to our individuation journey. In such cases, the relationship is more than a shared life story. It's an initiation, something that compels us to dive beneath the surface and explore the deepest meaning of being. Jung observed that the closer we draw to our psychic center, the self, the more we're guided by an inner sense of direction, by meaningful coincidences, by symbols pointing the way. And when someone enters our life as part of that guidance, everything seems to fall into place. Difficulties encountered in the relationship aren't seen as signs of failure, but as symbolic lessons demanding integration. The partnership becomes an alchemy where the ego dissolves and is reborn, where duality is reconciled, and where love is not just affection, but transformation. In destined love, communication is more than verbal. It's intuitive, energetic, and symbolic. There are moments when a single glance carries profound meaning. There are silences that speak louder than words. That happens because on unconscious levels, the souls are working together. The relationship becomes a temple where everyday rituals, conversations, conflicts, intimacy, silence, are tools for self-knowledge and healing. The beloved is recognized not only as a partner, but as a fellow traveler, a witness, and participant in our own transfiguration. And it's important to remember that this kind of love isn't always permanent in chronological terms. Sometimes the destined person doesn't stay forever, but fulfills a fundamental role in our individuation journey. The intensity of the connection doesn't depend on duration, but on depth. Even brief relationships can be portals to lasting change. What defines this love is not external stability, but internal impact. It transforms us, awakens us, and compels us to look within with greater courage. So growing alongside someone who mirrors our soul is accepting the invitation the universe extends through love. It's allowing the bond to affect not only our heart, but also our consciousness. And above all, it's choosing daily the more difficult yet truer path, becoming who we truly are, supported, mirrored, and challenged by the other. When love is destined, it doesn't just unite two people. It awakens a shared mission of growth, healing, and awakening. Transformative love isn't the kind that comforts, but the kind that awakens. When the universe sends us someone, it's answering a deep need of the soul, the need to become whole. Through synchronicity, projection, the shadow, and the individuation process, each meaningful encounter reveals itself as a symbolic mirror, not only for what we wish to experience with another, but for who we are meant to become. No true connection is by chance. The signs are always there, waiting for us to be sensitive enough to recognize them and courageous enough to follow them. If you've ever felt that someone entered your life with a higher purpose, perhaps now is the moment to look more deeply into that experience. Destined love isn't a final destination, but a path of revelations. And the more we open ourselves to that path, the more we realize that the truest encounter is always with ourselves. If this resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue this journey with us. Watch the recommended video on the screen now and dive even deeper into the mysteries of the soul. True love begins within, but it always finds its echo out there.